is constant action almost like a great way to build habits, be productive, give our mind something to do,
Hmm.
rather than saying, no, sit in inaction. I know there are two schools. Like meditation is inaction,
Right.
but is constant action also a great way to kind of build that in?
I feel that we don't fast enough in general
Yeah.
now because of the way that society is constructed. There is an overabundance of everything. So whether it's food, entertainment, anything you want, there is too much of it. And so fasting has become vital. It should become the norm. It used to be the norm even when there wasn't so much abundance,
Yeah.
and now it's become even more important. And that also means fasting in terms of information and knowledge gain, which sounds counterintuitive. You feel that no amount of knowledge is too much knowledge, but I don't think so. I think there is such a thing as too much knowledge. It depends on, are you using it? So technically, there's no amount of food that is too much food if you're burning it off.
Yeah.
But you can't burn off so much, right? You have one pizza that's enough for a week, but you can't burn off so much. So either you build up your habits to a level where you are burning off that much knowledge, and by burning off I mean putting it out there again, using it in some form, talking about it, writing a blog post, making a video, something. You have to use it in some way, or reduce your intake. Because where does all that go? What do you do with all that information? And that can, in fact, I believe that too much information is a source of threat. Because now you have too much. What do you do? Because you are trying to remember it also. Every reel that you see has information, and imagine your brain is just constantly trying to figure out what to remember, what to remember. Is this important? Because for your brain, it doesn't really matter if it's life saving or not. It's just trying to figure out what is important, what should I keep, what should I not. The cognitive effort that your brain is going through these days is tragic.
It's overload, right?
It's an overload.
I mean, one of the world's most famous, self guinea pigs, as he calls himself, Tim Ferriss.
Oh, yeah.
I was watching something. He says that I think he does this like quarterly things, right? He says every quarter he has this 1 week of fasting of information where he goes off somewhere, um, no internet, no nothing, not allowed to read, but he's allowed to write.
Nice.
And he says that's really almost like a reset he does for his mind every 3 months.
Yeah.
So kind of comes back, he's like, okay, it's like it's that 1 week long reboot that he does.
Amazing.
I think that's so important for all of us. Right? We need those reboots. Otherwise, like, it's like we have a barrage
All the
and
time.
it's a never-ending cycle of because you now wake up at night with stuff. I feel like we are scrolling through stuff in our sleep now. At some point, I think in our sleep we're all like swiping like this.
How many times has this happened that you pick up the phone for something else and you find yourself scrolling without even realizing when did the app open?
Yeah.
You know, you wanted to check somebody's phone number and suddenly you are laughing at some TikTok or some reel.
Yeah.
And you have no recollection of how you got there. Because those networks of opening the app and starting to scroll have become so wired
Yeah.
that it's not a decision anymore.
Yeah.
It just happens.
I was doing something the other day and I didn't realize it till someone pointed it out to me. Is that imagine I'm talking to you and I have my hands on my phone and I'm typing a message, but I'm not looking at the screen because now my fingers intuitively remember where the keypad things are. And I look back, and when that was pointed out, I looked down and my message was perfect. There was no
Amazing.
typos, thanks to autocorrect also. I give autocorrect credit sometimes. But you're right, because you almost intuitively do it now. It's no longer, I have to do this, a reflex that you go to.
Yeah.
And the more we do that at a young age, are we then almost like wiring people at a younger age to function so differently from how any of us function? Because I was born pre-internet. And I feel that's a blessing for me because I was born at the right time pre-internet. Like, you're not too old. You're right on that spectrum of, look, I've enjoyed brief period of no internet, then brief period of
Mobile
dial-up
phone,
internet,
yeah.
which nobody did. If you are young, you don't even know what dial-up internet is. That sound is embedded in my mind.
Same here.
And to eventually this, But let's say someone born in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
can you, the old wiring is gone. Does that necessarily mean that, I mean, you don't know what that effect is going to be till, I would say, another decade down the line?
Um, it's fascinating because to the brain, it is such a fluid thing. You throw anything at it and it'll just absorb.
Yeah.
And the younger you throw at it, the faster it'll absorb it. So whether it's languages, whether it's learning to roller skate, or whether it's learning to use a mobile phone, it becomes natural because that is the part of the world. Like I have a cousin who is 2 years old and she can open up a mobile phone, type in the password without having any idea of what a password is.
Yeah.
But this is just natural. It's a part of the universe now.
Yeah.
She knows what numbers to type and she can open up YouTube and start her video. And I was amazed at this. Like, who taught her? Nobody. She just observed her parents doing it and she started doing it.
Yeah.
In a way, great, because they have to grow up in that world. So they have a head start, which is why there are kids who are 18, 19, who are coming up with startup ideas and creating billion-dollar companies because that's the world they grew up in.
Yeah.
Much more challenging for somebody who's 40.
Yeah.
Because that's not their basic thinking isn't like that. They have to force themselves to learn a lot of new stuff. It's just a challenge for anyone who's above 30, I think, to constantly keep updating themselves.
So you actually flipped it around. You're saying it's easier for someone born closer to now.
100%.
So there is no. So basically, my hypothesis is wrong because my assumption was someone who understands old world and new world in a balanced form at that correct period would have the advantage, if you want to call it that, versus someone who's too close to the present or too far away from it.
So the way I think of it is for them, technology is their mother tongue.
True.
And for us, it's something that we've learned in school.
That is also
We
true.
can never ever gain that same level of fluency as somebody who's just brought up speaking that language.
Which also makes me think about the fact there was this recent article about obviously OpenAI and ChatGPT being what they are. I said the worry for someone like Google is that today Google's still predominant, but for someone who is very young and discovered ChatGPT now, it'll be the only way to function with search as they're growing up. They won't even get like, what is this Google thing? Why should I look at?
Yeah.
Why can't I just have a conversation with my search assistant?
Absolutely. Because if you think of how we used to find information 50 years ago, we used to go and ask around.
Or find an encyclopedia for people who remember what that was.
Yeah, a library for God's sake.
Yeah.
And look up things. But then Google came along. But even Google seems so outdated now because it'll give us websites.
Yeah.
Different sources of information that you have to physically click and search
And find out.
and make your own decisions.
Yeah.
What is this nonsense? GPT just tells us whatever we want to know.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting world.
Did that make you rethink things? If it did, make sure you check out the full episode.